Hello guys, hello everyone. I welcome you all to today's session. So today is part second of unit 2, that is AML KYC guidelines. We have already discussed about AML, anti-money laundering. Now in this session, this is a part second of the revision video, and we will be going to discuss the KYC, know your customer policy. Okay, so let's start with the basic discussion. What is know your customer policy? So know your customer policy in very simple words. Bank need to ensure that the clients who they are dealing with are genuinely who they claim to be. Means if I'm going to the bank and I'm saying that I want to open a saving account with you, and my name is Afreen Asmat, so I'm client of a bank. So I whatever I am claiming for myself, for example, I'm claiming that I am Afreen Asmat. The bank need to ensure that, okay, she is the Afreen Asmat. She is not imposing anyone. So this is the process that is undertaken in Know Your Customer policy. Know Your Customer policy is a mandatory process of verifying and identifying the identity of the customer, and need to ensure, and the bank need to ensure that whoever or whomsoever the bank is dealing with is actually the same person, or he or she is not imposing anyone. That is known as the know your customer policy, the process of identifying and the verification of the client's identity. That is the know your customer policy. So if we talk about the before know your customer policy, how a bank ensures the client safety, or how the bank ensures the client entity. This was done by the introduction of the new customer with any of the existing customer or any of the employees of the bank. But this is not possible in the case when you open a new branch, so you don't have any other customer or you don't have much employees there. So the bank has taken this process. This is known as know your customer policy, KYC policy. This is a mandatory process to check and identify the client's identity and making ensure that the client is the real one and he or she is not imposing someone. Okay, now next, when we talk about the customer, so a customer is termed as a client under the KYC process if they fulfill the following condition, or you can say a client is the one person who is engaged in any type of financial transaction or any type of financial transaction or financial activity with a reporting entity, and included the person on whose behalf the person is engaged. Means, for example, if I am dealing directly with the bank, so I am the customer, I am the client. But if, for example, I have appointed a third person to deal on my behalf with the bank, so he or she is also considered as the client of a bank. So a client is that individual who is directly engaged with the financial transaction, as well as the person who on the behalf of whom is engaged with the financial transaction. Okay, now if we talk about the customers from the KYC norm, so it includes not just person whose name the dealing are carried, but also for whose such a person, for also those who act for such a person. For example, I am dealing with the bank. My name is Afrin Asma, so I am a client of a bank. I'm a customer of a bank for KYC purpose. But for example, on my behalf, A is on my absence, I authorized A to operate the account of mine. So A is also considered as the customer of the bank. Not only me, but A is also the customer of the bank. Next, it covers not only the account holder, means account holder is already the customer of KYC, yeah, under KYC, but it also includes those who are having once in a while relation, financial relation with the bank. Means if you go to a bank and you want to deposit any amount or to another account, you are not the customer of that, you are not a regular account holder of that bank, but still you are considered as a customer under KYC. If you are doing one transaction, if you are doing series of transaction, if you are account holder, if you are directly engaged with the bank, if you are indirectly engaged with the bank, all the purpose needs KYC. All this process need KYC. So KYC, and for a customer under KYC, the all persons are considered. Clear? Now, next, if we talk about the key elements of KYC, what are the key elements of the KYC? So, there are these key element of the KYC. First of all, customer acceptance policy. What is customer acceptance policy? Bank need to accept the customer. Bank to need to ensure the identity of the customer. Bank need to ensure that if you are claiming to be Afreen Asmat, then you are Afreen Asmat. You are not imposing anyone. This is the customer acceptance policy. Next, identification process. Now, if the bank accepts you as an Afreen Asmat, now the second step is identification of the Afreen Asmat. Identification of Afreen Asmat, because you want to have a saving account with the bank. So all the documents that are supporting documents for your identity, all your background will be checked by the bank, that if you are not engaged in any type of financial crimes or any type of cyber crimes or anything. Third, risk management. Now, if you are identified, so a customer, after the identification of the customer, now the customer is divided into the categories of risk. There are different categories of risk. For example, there is a low risk customer, there is a medium risk customer, there is a high risk customer. So then risk management is done. Then the last thing is then monitoring your transaction. Now, after all the things happen, then the last thing is, if you have the saving account, if you successfully opened the saving account with the bank, then the bank need to check or keep a record of your financial transaction which you are dealing with the bank or which you are having with the. So these are key elements of KYC. First, the customer should be accepted. He or she should not be imposing any other identity. Second, the customer identification process. Third, there is a risk management. Now the customer need to classify into different type of risk. And the fourth is the monitoring transaction. Monitoring transaction means now the customers, whatever the transaction a customer is doing with the bank or with any other, the bank need to keep a monitor on that. Okay. Now next, if we talk about the organizational setup for the AML, okay, animal laundering. So, if there we are checking the anti-money laundering, if anyone or any institution or bank need to check the anti-money laundering which is associated with the bank, then there should be two officers which must be appointed by the bank. First is the designated officer and another one is the principal officer. Now, the designated director is responsible for what? First of all, it ensures that bank need to appoint the designated officer for anti-money laundering processes. So the designating director, first of all, assured that the bank should have an appropriate functional setup so that all the process of KYC and AML requirements should be fulfilled. Means you should have an appropriate functional setup. Second, they need to ensure that the KYC policies have been duly updated. Means whatever the updates they have with the KYC, that is there. Third, should have a skilled staff perform the functions of the KYC. Lastly, take suitable measures if any of the money laundering and terrorist financing risk are there. So the designating director is actually responsible for this. Now, what is the responsibility of the principal officer? So bank need to ensure the principal officer also. So what is the purpose of the principal officer? First of all, it monitor the implementation of the KYC. It reports transaction to FIU India, Financial Intelligence Unit India. I already told you that FIU India is responsible for having all the financial details from bank. Okay. Third, maintaining with the law enforcement agency. You have to maintain with the law ensuring agencies also. So there is a ensuring submission of periodical reports. So every bank should have to submit the periodical report to the concerned authorities, and keeping the AML, anti-money laundering system, updated. So these are the functions of PO and designated director. These two has been appointed by the bank to carry out or eliminate the risk of the money laundering and terrorist financing. Next, now, if we talk about the AML, anti-money laundering team. Now, if we talk about the anti-money laundering team, so the main function of AML team is to update the KYC regularly, guide the business and functions of the customer identification. Third, undertake a different risk assessment and review it. Means if you are the customer of the bank should periodically list you under the high risk and lower category, and the bank duly always update your profile according to your transaction. Next, to assist business and operation in the customer category risk categorization, to monitor transactions as well as to submit various information and report to the Financial Intelligence Unit India. So these are the main function of anti-money laundering team. Okay, now obligations. Now, what are the obligations of the anti-money laundering? First of all, the obligation of this is to verify the identity of the customer. So there is a Prevention of Money Laundering Act. So first of all, you need to verify the identity of the customer. The customer identity is good, and for this you need to have their passport or Aadhaar or use any of the valid documentation that are needed to verify the identity of the customer. Second, you should have to maintain the record of all the transactions, and this record should be kept from the record should be kept for 5 years from the date of transaction. Means if you are joining any transaction is for example done today, so from today you will have to maintain the record of this transaction for 5 years. So this is the obligation under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Okay. Third, you have to maintain the record of the identity documents also. If I have presented my identity to you, for example Aadhaar or passport, so from this day till 5 years you have to maintain all the valid document with yourself. So these are the guidelines bank need to follow. Identification verification. Second, record of all the documentation as well as record of all the transaction. Okay. Next, risk based approach. Now what is the risk based approach? Means for example there is some identified risk in the bank. For example, the risk has been identified in the bank just have a suspicious account, and bank know that there is something wrong in this account. So bank should take such measures to mitigate the impact of the money laundering. Means to lessen the impact of that risk, to reduce the impact of this, bank should take the measures as early as possible. Why? Because the risk is actually being identified. Last, there is a risk assessment also. Bank should undertake an assessment, an effective measure to mitigate the money laundering and terrorist financing risk from the customer. Now, there are various offices that are located in the different countries of the bank, and the bank should need to ensure the all aspects of the customer, and bank should take such measures in order to mitigate the money laundering and terrorist financing thing. Okay. So this is the risk management. Okay. Now, if we talk about the risk management, first of all, there is a risk-based approach. So risk-based approach focuses on mitigation and management of the identified risk. If the risk has been identified, the bank should take the measure to reduce the impact of that risk. There is a risk assessment. Now banks should assess the risk also, that how much impact this can impose in the country as well as in the organization, and bank again should take the measure to reduce that risk. And bank should use their offices which are located in different countries and anyone to mitigate that risk. Third step in the risk management is customer categorization. So I have already told you, according to the profile of the customer is actually divided into three categories: high, medium, and low, high, medium, and low risk customer. So a review of the risk categorization is actually done in every 6 months based on the transaction that are carried out by the customer. For example, if I want to open the account in the bank, now I have a very clear profile. For example, my salary is being credited in every one of this month. I just take the usual spending from the bank. So I am a low risk customer. High risk customer are those who oftenly deal more in cash. For example, jewelers, for example, politicians. These are considered as the high risk customer. Okay, so risk categorization should be there. Risk categorization, the customer categorization of risk should be in three parts. First of all, there is a low, second medium, and third high. And in every 6 months, bank has to update this profile according to the transaction they are doing. For example, if there is a high risk customer but they are maintaining a good profile throughout the 6 months, the category should be shifted to medium or low risk customer. Okay, next, there should be an introduction of new technologies in the risk management. Lastly, should have a staff hiring and training system so that the staffs are skilled enough to mitigate the impact of risk as well as to helps to avoid the risk that has been imposed in the clear. So this is the risk management. Next, reporting obligations. So you all know that a bank should have to report the financial transactions to Financial Intelligence Unit India. Banks should report the financial transactions to the FIU India, and this should be monthly. So following four reports means these are the four reports which the bank need to submit by every 15th of the month. Now if every 15th, now if there are any transaction related to these four categories, bank should report these transaction on every 15th of the month. Now what are the four transaction? So first, if there is a cash transaction report, if there is any cash transaction for 10 lakh or more, or series of cash transaction in which the amount is equivalent to 10 or more, 10 lakh or more, this should be reported to Financial Intelligence Unit India on every 15th of the month. If there is a cross-border wire transfer and the amount is of 5 lakh or more, this should be reported. If there is any non-profit organization report, for example, if there is any receipt from non-profit organization and the value is rupees 10 lakh or more, if I have any receipt of rupees 15 lakh from any non-profit organization, this the bank need to submit this financial report on every 15th or to FIU India. Lastly, if there is any counterfeit currency report, so all the counterfeit currency notes should be reported. If they received this note, this should be reported under the FIU India. Clear? Done. So these are some of the reporting obligation that should be made by the bank to Financial Intelligence Unit India. Clear? Now last, not uh, if you are violating any provisions of this, or if there are any non-compliance of the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, then what are the consequences? What are the punishment? First of all, a bank or a director, PMLA, Prevention of Money Laundering Act actually empowered the director to take the measures to take action against any of the bank employees or managers or any director. If they think they are involved in the money laundering process, a director can take the punishment or can just take any legal obligations against any of the bank or employees or managers on anything. So Prevention of Money Laundering Act actually what it actually empowers the Financial Intelligence Unit director to take certain measure. For example, they can issue the written warning. Okay, they can take the specific remedial measure to submit the reports. Third, they can impose the monetary penalty of rupees minimum of rupees 10,000 and maximum of rupees 1 lakh per violation. So these can be done by the Directorate of Financial Intelligence Unit India if you are non-compliant any of the provision of the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Okay, clear? So this is the complete revision for you all. There are two parts, part one and second. I have already complete all the revisions of the PML, Prevention of Money Laundering, our anti-money laundering and KYC guideline. Okay, I hope that you have all enjoyed this session. Just please keep on giving the feedbacks and ratings to the session. Thank you so much. Till then, take care everyone. Bye bye guys. Take care everyone. Bye. Bye everyone.